Morning, everyone.
Hey, Mike. What do you like about what Will gives you back there on kick returns?
Yeah, he's done a really good job, especially over the last few returns that he has had. I think it was really starting in the Tampa Bay week. He's got that vision of a running back. He's very patient. I think if you see that first one, that he kind of slowed down just a hair to give Xavier that angle to kick out that one right there. Then he was able to hit the crease. But, Will brings that explosiveness, that vision, some ball security. Then, again, I think last week, the frontline guys, that was their best week of blocking. So, when you have two guys that do have explosiveness in both Xavier and Will, and the guys blocking like that, it's only going to help out the team.
Xavier is a punt returner. What do you think he adds there?
Yeah, and again, he has some explosiveness. Obviously, dating back to when he was with the Jets, he's had a couple returns, big returns, some touchdowns in that case. But it's been a pleasure to work with Xavier since we've gotten him. Working with him after practice, during practice, he's all in. So he brings some energy. He's just an energy giver, really. So it was nice to see him actually get an opportunity. He did a really good job getting out to that, I believe, the 24-yard line. Nice 17-yard return right there. So, add to the confidence for him as he gets more acclimated with the team.
Is that some of that because Jahan was being used more on offense?
There's a whole bunch of different things that go into it. Obviously, the roster's so fluid, but being able to have all these returners, whether it's Jahan, whether it's Cooper, whether it's Xavier back there, just helps us out. Going into those situational games.
What's your understanding or the explanation you got on the inadvertent whistle on Jake's field goal? Yeah,
I really didn't ask more than anything else. I was more confused. I was looking at the ball, then I heard a whistle, so my eyes kind of went down. So I actually didn't even see the kick, the tail end of the kick. I was looking down. Obviously, Nick handles that with the officiating crew. Obviously, they have a tough job in it itself. So for myself personally, I really was like, what had happened? I was more confused than anything else. But again, there's so much that goes on in one play that they have a tough job, and it is what it is.
And just to clarify, because I was in the press box, so I couldn't hear it. I only saw the TV feed. It came after the kick, so it's not something that affected the kick, or did it come during the kick process?
I was looking up, then I heard a whistle. Did somebody jump offside? Like, you always think the worst thing that could happen right there. So then I looked down, then Nick was having the conversation with the referee, so I kind of just stayed out of it just to make sure, Nick had it handled.
Did you get an explanation from Sidney about what was going on in that one play early in the fourth quarter?
His little I've only seen that happen one time, where a guy tried to jump over someone, and it was in college, 2012 Rose Bowl. Colt Ireland tried to jump over someone. With Sidney, he demands a lot of attention on kickoff coverage because how active he is. And he's one of those situations where he tried something new, see what would happen. I think the next time I see Sidney is probably keep 2 feet on the ground and use your hands to try and make a play. But again, there is some fluidity on what these guys do in terms of, block destruction, stuff like that. And again, when I saw that happen, like I hadn't seen that in a long time. But I think my next, conversation with Sidney for his own player health and safety is probably keep 2 feet on the ground next time.
Do you feel like you've kind of figured out the personnel and what you want at kick return?
Figured it out? Shoot. When I say I figured out something, I probably walk away from the game. The roster is so fluid. You're just trying to make sure you have enough answers for when things happen, whether it's an injury or, a guy's inactive because somebody else needs help right there. So I don't think I have anything figured out in terms of that. I'm just trying to help these guys out, with their confidence. And I think it's happened. I think 3 of the last 4 kickoff returns we've fielded have gone past the 40-yard line. So it's a nice little, energy boost for the kickoff return after, going through some tumultuous times earlier in the year and, that Thursday night game. So for these guys to have that confidence going into the bye week, knowing we could come back and help out the field position for the offense is all we're trying to do from a special team standpoint.
Will's ability to see the field, his vision, how much of a factor is that in his ability to be good at this?
Yeah, it helps out a lot, obviously having that running back background, but, his vision is great, and it's not just on kickoff return. He also has that vision on punt protection, as the PP to see different stunts and of that nature. So his vision is very high level stuff, which helps out, and it helps out the going back to kickoff return. It helps out the blockers where he could set a stem just off his vision. If he sees the guy overplaying, he could set one way, then allow the block to help him out right there. So again, it's just his vision is high level, and it just helps everybody else out.
How much has Braden grown since he's come here, and why do you think he's mean, I think he's second in the league right now.
Yeah, Braden, he is the worker of all workers. Outside of, within the practice scheme, he's out there another 45 minutes after, and he's just working his craft, and, he doesn't feel satisfied in anything he does until it's the end product. But I think he's doing a really good job, placing the ball, huge kick in that kind of backed up situation where he was in the end zone, 57-yard net, and, Sidney getting down there to cause the fair catch. But I think the more acclimated he's gotten with us, the more confidence he has, and, he just works his tail off, and I can't say enough good things about Braden Mann.
Vic has noted in the past that he'd probably like to keep Cooper for himself on the defense because he's such an important player. And he hasn't returned kicks, but he is on the kick coverage team. I'm just curious how crucial he is to the kick coverage.
Yeah, you never want to give up a big return off this new kickoff coverage, kickoff return stuff. But the good thing with Cooper, he's a team guy. He's in here and he wants to stay on that kickoff coverage team, and he did a really good job. Him and Keeley made a good tackle coming out the half right there. But in terms of we're just trying to help out the team and any personnel we can use. I think if you date back to last year in the playoff run, we were using Nolan Smith and on kickoff coverage, another starter right there. But we're just trying to help out the team. And, I'm always one to, hey, if he needs a break, we've trained enough guys to, hey, we'll give him one blow here going forward. But, I think that's the beauty of football. You see all these superstar guys, Cooper DeJean, you see Jordan Davis on our field goal protection team. They're just trying to do anything to help the team win a game.
In those first 4 or 5 weeks, how was Tank handling not having the offensive role and in having the exposure to him that you do? What do you think this did for his confidence having the game that he had?
Yeah, I think Tank, he's been great since we've gotten him. Regardless whether it's helping out on kickoff coverage, helping out on punt coverage, then having to see him have that success, and you kind of understood that he had that potential in him. Obviously, dating back last year when he was in Jacksonville, he was an 800-yard rusher as a running back, so it's not like he didn't have that talent. But he brings some juice, also some energy. Obviously, what was that, 2nd and 31, something like that? That able to get it just bouncing off, and then the coolest one was that 2nd and 7 or that 17-yard run where they pushed the pile right there. So he's just another energy giver that he works hard, he works his tail off. Not just in running back drills and offense, but he also works his tail off in the special teams room.
I know you pay attention to stuff around the league. There's been a couple instances where people think kickers hit the wire, the camera. Have you guys, as a special teams coordinators, address that with the league at all, or are concerned about it?
I don't think there's like a concern or address it with the NFL. I think it's almost like a freak product if it does or it doesn't hit the wire. And again, I can only attest if it does happen. I think it's just one of those things that just kind of happen, and it's kind of the flavor right now, but nothing too worrisome about it.